Welcome to Mr. Mutlow's Topic in 10 Minutes. This video covers the Sport in Australia section of the A.S. Physical Education course. It is important to note that there are three different areas within the Sport in Australia topic. The first is why Australia has such a high preoccupation with sport. The second is the origins of Aussie rules football, and the third is the reason why Aussie rules football continues to develop in Australia today. I will begin by addressing the question of why sport has such a high status in Australian society. The first major reason for the high status of sport in Australia is the fact that it has accessible natural resources. As Australia has a wealth of oceans, vast quantities of barren land called the outback, and a variety of other natural resources, there is plenty of space and opportunity to play sport. Hence, it becomes an important part of life in Australia. Equally, sport has such a high status because it is seen as fashionable, and a healthy lifestyle is considered important by the Australian people. If something is considered fashionable, there is a high chance that people will participate, and therefore the status of that activity will be high. A third reason for the high status of sport in Australia is that it receives a huge amount of political support and funding. This enables it to develop appropriately and to have a high profile in the country. Another reason for the high status of sport in Australia is the success which Australian athletes have had on an international scale. When you think of people like Ian Thorpe and Cathy Freeman, you think of highly successful athletes who also become excellent role models for people who look up to them. With the presence of such figures, it is easy to see why sport becomes a popular and fashionable thing to do if you are an Australian. Furthermore, Australia has a relatively young population, and this ensures that they are active and healthy. If the population is young and health is considered important, methods of maintaining health, such as sport, will have a high status. Sport is also popular in Australia because there is plenty of space in which to play, in addition to there being a favourable climate for participating in sport. Unlike in the UK, where the weather is unpredictable and there is a lot of crowding due to a large population in a small space, Australia does not have these problems, and therefore people are able to participate in sport freely in a wide range of spaces and at all times of the year. This increases its status in a country like Australia. Additionally, Australia has such a preoccupation with sport because it has a healthy economy, which enables people to have a high disposable income which they may choose to spend on sport. The media also play a key part in the status of sport in Australia, as it is highly publicised and very much in the public domain. Where the media are interested, populations often follow, as you will know from your study of the media in sport. Therefore, the high status of sport is dictated by the interest of the media. The final factor which ensures that Australia gives a high status to sport is the cultural respect for the traditional values that the Australians have lived by. The bush culture of the early settlers, who lived a difficult life, ensures that people are prepared to accept and value hard work, stamina, and a pioneering spirit. These things are all evident on the sports field and therefore are considered important in society. This gives sport a high status in Australia. We will now turn our attentions to the origins of Australian rules football. In doing so, it is important that you are comfortable with the reasons why sport has such a high status in Australia. In order to understand Australian rules football, we need to first understand its origins. Aussie rules originally developed as a winter training game for cricketers, hence the reason it is played on large circular ovals like the outfields on many cricket pitches. The aim of the game was to keep cricketers fit during the off-season. The game itself was invented by a man called Tom Wills, who organised and established it in the 1850s in the city of Melbourne. It is for this reason that the first set of rules were referred to as the Melbourne rules. It is thought that Aussie rules developed as the combination of one of two things. The first idea is that Aussie rules was a combination of an Aboriginal leaping game and rugby union. The second theory is that Aussie rules football was a combination of Gaelic football and rugby union. This seems unlikely, however, as the Melbourne rules were established before Gaelic football became well known. This is all the information you need to know about the origins of Aussie rules football, so we will now turn our attentions to how the game has developed. One of the major factors for the development of Aussie rules football is the high status of sport in Australia. This is something we discussed earlier. Another reason for the development of the game is the opportunity it provides to make money and to have fame and fortune. A further reason for the development of Aussie rules football is the successful management structure which has been put in place, allowing progression and organisation of leagues and cups in an effective manner. This effective management allows more people to play and participate, and thus helps the game to develop. Equally, the game of Aussie rules has a widespread appeal which has enabled it to develop. Not only can the game be played by men and women, but it can also be played by all ages, with touch variations and other things allowing a variety of people to participate. This has enabled the game to develop further and spread to new markets. Australian rules also provides an identity for Australia and its own unique game, which is not played by other countries. For a relatively young country, this helps to provide identity and is one of the reasons why the game has developed and been furthered in recent times. Australian rules also has a clear pathway to the elite level, and therefore all participants who begin at grassroots can see the way in which they may make it as a professional player. This helps the game to develop, as it allows people to believe that they may make it to the elite level and see the route which they need to take. This is often not the case in bigger sports such as rugby, cricket or football. Aussie rules football is highly commercial in Australia and has major links with the media and sponsorship. This has helped the game to develop as it has increased interest, viewing figures, and the importance of the game in society as a whole. Another key factor in the development of the game is the role of the media itself. As Aussie rules is a successful media product, it is on show to a huge number of people across the country. As a consequence, its popularity increases and it develops as a game. There are two further reasons which help to explain the development of Aussie rules. The first is the use of schools. Due to the simple nature of the game and the limited amount of equipment required, Aussie rules has become a popular sport to be played in schools. This has allowed all Australian children access to the game and has helped its development in the long run. As we all know, regular participation in something helps to improve our skills and our interest in that activity. The final factor which has helped to develop the game of Aussie Rules is the conversion of the game. In simple terms, the game of Aussie Rules is very similar to many others, such as rugby and football, and it enables people to convert easily from other sports. The skill sets are similar, and the attributes required are often the same, and therefore many people convert to Aussie Rules from other sports which they may have played previously. This enables the player base to grow and helps the game to develop. Each of these factors is important when considering the development of the game of Australian rules football. That concludes the topic in 10 minutes on sport in Australia.